This episode is brought to you by listeners like you, the last spark of hope in a world running low on signal. You're the boost behind this mic in these static filled times. Stay tuned and stay human. On this episode of the podcast, where he meets a fellow colleague, Serge, they don't really give him a last name, and there's a reason, right? Serge gets to ask some questions about what is this all about? You don't know either? Wow. Them go in a room and them find themselves among a whole lot of bodies just lying on tables all around, underneath sheet and everything. Yeah. Answers just moments away.
Prepare for warp speed as we embark on a voyage through the vast expanse of science fiction in movies and television series. From distant planets to alien civilization, we delve into the hearts of the unknown, unraveling the tales that have captured audiences for generations. Get ready to unlock the secrets of the universe on CodeFlix.
Greetings, fellow sci-fi and fantasy lovers. Welcome to CodeFlix, where we explore the TV shows and movies that shape our imaginations. I'm Andre Bonner, and in today's episode, we'll be looking at the movie The Core. Let's take a trip straight into the center of the Earth. Why? Well, because a few brilliant minds decided it was a great idea to trigger a weapon that ends up destabilizing the planet's core. The solution? Send a specialized team, astronauts, scientists, and engineers, on an impossible mission to journey deep into the Earth and fire nuclear charges to restart the core's rotation. This movie has always sparked my curiosity. After watching apocalypse-style films like Deep Impact, which I broke down in a previous episode, so feel free to check that one out, I realized this film fits right into the same intense world-ending category. It's a wild ride from start to finish, with an ending that leaves you thinking long after the credits roll. These are my personal insights and interpretations of The Core, including some of my favorite moments and the characters. So, right off the bat, in the first scene, we are introduced to death in the way of a man falling over dead in mid a lecture, right? After a pacemaker stop, right? Outside, there are several accidents that are occurring. People are crashing vehicles, people are riding and just fall over, people, just drop dead in the street for no reason, right? The scientists, them, I wonder what is up with all this unexplained deaths, right? Especially with people who have pacemakers, right? So, them call in one Dr. Josh Keys, who is a professor at a university, and he's apparently picked up by Secret Service, right? And it's kind of funny because the guy that is playing, one of the guys that's playing Secret Service agent, I know him from the series 24. He was protecting the president we're very close to Jack and all those guys. But yeah, it was, just seeing him was, shows that this guy was around in a lot of different ways, and just the way how he is, right? I guess he landed the role, right? And it makes sense for him to land that kind of role. Anyways, now while Dr. Keys is escorted to a location, he meets a fellow colleague, Serge. They don't really give him a last name, and there's a reason, right? Serge gets to ask some questions about, like, what is this all about? You don't know either? Wow. Them go in a room and them find themselves among a whole lot of bodies just lying on tables all around, underneath sheet and everything. Yeah. And then basically get handed like a dossier from this general guy, coming in. Whammy man, him just come in and he's like, what you make of this? Give me an expert opinion on this. And Dr. Keys is like, hey, all of these people died with pacemakers. They seem like some kind of something with some frequency thing, because that's his specialty, right? And man's like, oh, thank you, and you're dismissed. Like, nothing else. Him not need nothing else from them. Like, him just bring them there. I mean, him just spend taxpayer money, and from what I know about US, and spend them taxpayer money. Just do that, and just leave it at that. And like, you're dismissed. You don't need to know nothing else. I guess, they want to have secrecy among these things. So there, amidst all of this, there is a space shuttle emergency that occurs where, astronauts are returning from space on a mission, and then find that the spacecraft guidance is off because of the fact that the Earth, the magnetic pole, or the magnetic thingy, right? I'm not too clear on that one. It's a long time I did geography, guys, and I remember that there's some that thing that allows the magnetic field. That's what it is. The magnetic field lines have been skewed, and so it skewed the equipments on the space shuttle, and so the malfunction happened on re-entry. And if you know about space shuttle disasters, whenever you have problems with re-entry, everybody might just die, right? Of course, the crew lands safely in our, basically, near one river, right? It's like them have like a river basically, and then they land in there. But of course, it did take out a few pieces of infrastructure, because they had like bridges, and they had, so it plowed through all of that, and basically, yeah, but quick thinking by those who were commanding it, the commander, Dr. Name Iverson, and the lady astronaut. I'll get to her name soon, but essentially they were safe, right? Which is a good thing, right? Of course, they don't take kindly to the fact that it just landed $1 billion worth of property in like that. And at first they were ready to chew out them about it, and vulnerable things. But yeah, I think before that, though, there are some tourists that are videotaping in a square, right? And them notice the bird them act very, very strangely. And it is because of that, that whole thing with the magnetic field again, because birds, they fly, based on the magnetic field. There's some kind of magnetic thing that's in their head, and so it helps to guide them. So because the field was off or, something, it just caused them to be going nuts, right? And all sort of something are going. They were dive bombing. They were, doing a whole lot of damage, right? And people had to like duck out of the way and get out of the way, and some people get hurt and all of these things. So yeah, one bag of crazy stuff happening. And of course, we get back to Josh, Dr. Keys, who would have been curious about, curiosity as a scientist is good, and that is the mark of a good scientist, right? And he is a good scientist. So, of course, after him did get that little idea, him get to find out that something are going on, people are dying and all of these things. Him start to look into it himself, and him asks people for, put them on alert. And this was the greatest thing about this film. That I love to talk about this scientific accuracy and all, being able to have multiple points of data and communicating with multiple different persons observing, not just saying, oh, me observe it and so believe this is what's going to happen. No, it was like, me not trust my eyes alone. Let me ask other persons to just tell me if there is something about this that looks off to them. And he was able to get all of that information and gather, even more data and evidence. And, that would have led him to ask more questions, right? So this is where he approaches Dr. Zimsky, right? Now, Dr. Zimsky is a well-known, basically, like scientist, and he also works for the government, basically, directly. And, he seems to be at least aware of the finding that Josh has, right? At least that's what he gives, right? Now, after that, he seemed to be a little bit impressed because him have Dr. Keys brought to the Pentagon where he presents the evidence that the Earth's magnetic field is collapsing, right? And at the rate that it's going, they might expect total apocalypse and it will stop definitely, right? So while him there, him back up, what Dr. Zimsky was saying, and Dr. Zimsky is like, thank you and thing and whatever. Them like, so what can we do? How can we avert this disaster, right? So this is where it takes a turn for the worst here because them start out about nukes and detonating it around the core in order to restart it. Now, you don't know why the core would have stopped spinning and thus producing the magnetic field. Why the heck would you go with the first thing of deciding you're gonna blow up something? And then them say America is, the most peaceful nation and so on and all that. But anyways, I digress. So he's proposed that this is what we're gonna have to do if you're gonna use nukes. Let's do it like this, right? So he starts spell it out and thing, and he was very skeptical because here we know, at the core of the Earth, and up to this point, I don't know of any research that is done directly on the core, right? The only thing is that we can observe what is happening with the movement of tectonic plates and, certain things we can tell from what comes up to the surface and not actually go down there, right? Because it's not impossible, it's just that it's very, very unlikely that it's an easy journey there. And you would have to be very crazy to spend a lot of money on doing that, right? I don't think, it's a good idea to go down there, if it's just for study, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, these people attack, and the man is like, he's like, well, if we could, if we could, you know what I'm saying? It's like, Zimski is like, yeah, we're gonna get there. I was like, so how we gonna get there? I'm like if we are asking the same questions as the audience, how are you gonna get there? So they go to this facility that seems to be out in the middle of the desert and stuff and thing. And Dr. Zimski introduces Dr. Ed Brazelton. Braz is his nickname. Now, he got last name too, but you know what I'm saying? Dr. Braz is completely one of those wacko scientists, basically. It look like he whacked out his gourd. You know what I'm saying? He's almost like Doc from Back to the Future, right? But him not so nutty that you can't understand him. You can understand him a little bit, but you realize, say, yeah, he has been outblown for too long. That's the kind of thing you got from him. So he introduces this concept of a vessel that is made from unobtainium. And for us who watch a lot of sci-fi and across the many spectrums of stuff, when you hear them talk about unobtainium, it is just not possible. There's no scientific accuracy there, none at all, right? It's this fictional material. It can be used as anything, right? And in this particular movie, they use it as this material that can withstand extreme heat and pressure. So it's going to help them to get to the core of Earth, right? So, of course, they're looking at him seriously with serious eyes because they're saying, hey, this look like a something we can use and thing. And he's just telling them about the thing because he's just excited to tell them about his invention. And then when they ask him, so what do you need to get one built? And they might tell him what kind of specification, because they want something we can hold things and it can carry nuclear weapons and so on. And he's like, let me think. It's like, it's almost a let me think moment, like $1 billion, to finish it, in 3 months' time. So, and he never take them serious, but they're like, okay, you have it. And it's like, what? What? What do you mean I have it? So, yeah, we get this nice little time, it's not quite a montage, but yeah, them recruit the rat. The rat is this dude. He is nicknamed that because, he's able to get in and get out of places that other persons would not be able to. He's a hacker, right? And they're like, at first them kind of skeptical about him because him not, behave him a criminal, and so him behave very criminal like, and they're like, yeah, we don't have time for this. And then he's like, okay, me can show you what I can do. And him just show them what he can do right there, and then they're like, yeah, we'll sign you up. You got $1 million. You know what I'm saying? That kind of moment, right? And of course, no team would not be viable or complete without having a female, right? A strong female role. And that is with the same, lady that was put under pressure because she crashed the space shuttle in the river. And so that's Major Rebecca Beck child and Commander Bob Iverson, right? He's not that important right now, right? But she is, because right off the bat, she and Josh, you can see the connection instantly. You know what I'm saying? There is no denying that, you know what I'm saying? They hit it off real well. Chemistry on the spot. And of course, they had to exonerate her, right? And then, say, under the the circumstances, her performance was flawless and so on. Although she still has some doubts about her thing because Iverson comes to her, she's practicing to pilot that craft that's going to take them to the core, and you know she's making some mistakes and she's very harsh on herself, and Bob is giving her some advice. I don't know what that advice was really, because it don't make sense to me that you'll be telling somebody that, especially when they are about to go on something like this. You want to be a little bit more, encouraging. Yeah, but probably that's his way of doing things. So, of course, they dubbed themselves terranauts, right? Because astro means space, terra means earth, so they're going to be earth or nuts. Anyways, so they practice as a team together, and you can see that it doesn't seem like they're ready same way. The ship is being built out and stuff, and that's that's the cool montage there that we get, right? So of course things are not going so well in the world, right? Rat is able to tap into the internet, I guess, and find news stories where things are happening, and them can relate it back to what they know is happening with the magnetic field. So yeah, them realize they need to go, and they need to go like yesterday, right? So the general order that they go and things. So them get the mission specialists, the same black lady, and them get everybody who basically would be working, I guess, in NASA to come and be a part of the whole thing. And them go out into into the waters, because the thought is at least, and I'm not sure about this, right? As I said, I did geography years ago. There is a point in the sea, the Marianas Trench, and it's supposed to be where the crust is the thinnest, and so it make it easier for them to pass through the crust and enter the mantle quicker, thus getting to the core, right, faster. So then position the craft, and the craft is going, the nose is pointed downwards and stuff. So it's supposed to basically, just get launched into the water. So, they have a big countdown and everything, and it's launched, right? We'll be right back after these messages. We're not doing this podcast for money. There's no funding, no secret government program backing it. It runs on something far rarer these days: passion, curiosity, and the stubborn belief that stories matter. If you're hearing this transmission, consider yourself part of the mission now. Share it with someone who won't panic under pressure. Leave a comment to confirm your comms are still online. Every listen, every follow, every share keeps this signal strong. And trust me, in times like these, we can't afford a weak signal. This isn't just entertainment. This is how we stay connected when the world starts cracking. Now, as Virgil is the name of the ship, by the way, right? I don't know if I mentioned that, right? Braz named him ship Virgil. Yeah. So Virgil descends through the rock strata and use the laser them where it have, to basically eat through the crust nice and smooth, like a knife through butter. So they end up reach like one section, because what is happening is that like they have like a windshield where they can actually see out, right? Because the way how it's so hot, there's no material that can withstand, that is transparent either. And so they have to use special cameras basically that's designed to show them where they're going, right? And these cameras, they're not like seeing a normal spectrum of visible light. So it does, what you're seeing is just basically a digital representation of the outside. Having explained all of that, my audience, so they can't really see what's going on outside. And when they were programming it, they didn't know or didn't recognize that there could be a possibility, you know, 'cause remember, you know, these guys, some of them are scientists, and the scientists who have do the work, you know, him never factored in to the equation, none at all, that there could be a point where there is rocks that are not all that solid and that you'll be able to go through and there would be empty space. Yeah. They didn't factor that in at all. So what happened is that them start to see this thing and them trying to figure out what it is because it's showing up as black, right? And they're trying to figure out what it was. And as they approached it, you know, Josh is like, wait, I don't think the computer can read empty space. And they crash through, finding themselves in a geode, I guess, right? And in the geode, right, from geology, right, geography, there's a rock and it have a whole heap of shards and stuff in there. So the Virgil crashes through and it kind of damaged Virgil. So I'm trying to figure out how they're going to get themselves out. So everybody, except for those who are required to pilot the thing, right, which is Rebecca, is left back in Virgil, and everybody else is basically outside in them suits, you know, and thing. And of course, they would have come through. The hole that them come through would have some lava that is coming through with them, right? And it's starting to drip as they're trying to assess their situation and fix the problems with the ship and so on. And Commander Iverson, him decide to stand up at the wrong place at the wrong time, and a piece of a crystal broke off, and the shard came right down into his skull. And this was just when he was like, you know, ready to go back in now and thing or whatever. Yeah. So that makes Beck the mission commander and the only one that is left that can fly. Sorry, I'm using terms like a space, right? They can pilot this ship through the rest of the Earth, right? So them narrowly escape the volcanic magma as it collapse, right? And they maneuver through, you know, and thing. Now, Serge, who, you know, I mentioned before, in kind of sound Russian, right? But of course, you know, people can sound away but not be that way, right? He's talking about his family and, you know, what, you know, make him feel like, you know, this is going to work and all of those things, you know. And this is what usually happens in these films. As soon as somebody start talking about their family, you need to stop them and say, hey, listen, we don't want you to pass away, so don't talk, don't say nothing else. Because as soon as you talk about yourself and your family, you're next. So they reach the outer core and it enters the superheated outer core. The crew, them prepare now for launch the nuclear charges, right? So there is a failure, right? Because what happened is that the whole setup or the plan was to get things moving a particular way, and that never worked out the way it's supposed to. So, of course, Dr. Zimsky, who knew all along what was going on because they have a secret project named Project Destiny, right? Which is a US superweapon that they use to stop the core, right? It start panic, and basically they're like, we need to return because the thing is, if we make it out now, then we can get out before them send the pulse down, right? And we'll be fine and thing, and hopefully it works. Hopefully what they're trying to do with stopping it, the same weapon them used to stop it, is the one that's gonna start it. That's what the thought is. However, there is an issue, right? Where Serge end up, in a situation where he has to sacrifice himself. Because just like in outer space, you have micrometeors that are passing and stuff. What happens is, something like that happened now where it breached the cargo bay, right? And Serge have to manually close the thing so that it doesn't compromise the entire hull. I don't know how it works that they'll have to close off that section and in order not to compromise the entire hull, but they had to do it, and he had to do it manually, and it end up basically being in the bay when it collapses in on itself, right? So of course there's a big argument about whether they should abort, as I mentioned before, and the military order that them fire the weapon that them supposed to fire and thing. Keys no one for hear that and thing, so him disconnect communications and thing. Him and rat kind of have a little, closeness, so him kind of rat, make him know, so listen, but there you know, what you want me to do? You want me to help you or what? And him say, yeah, we want you to find a way to stall them. At first him never know what to do, but him figure it out. Him try to find some ways around their security protocols to access the weapon, right? Meanwhile, Keys now him have to develop a new plan, thinking on his feet, right? Well, I say he's a good scientist, and he he thinks of using some smaller timed detonations and placing them in sequence, and that should create like a self-amplifying wave where go thus restart the core, right? Yeah, all of that mumbo jumbo. I guess it seemed logical and it makes sense to them. So most persons like, yeah, that sounds like a good plan. Let's do that. So them start prepare for the new charges and stuff, and Beck navigates deeper into the core as Keys and Zimski assemble the remaining warheads. They have to get Zimski on board, right? Now, of course, no film would be complete without having something happening at the 11th hour, and that is Virgil gets damaged, right? The vessel power grid start to fail, and, they have to find some way for reroute systems, right? And this puts a lot of doubt into how the plan are going to be able to execute. So with everything getting into place now, them do the first bomb placement and them inject that warhead and it positions correctly. Zimski him come around him, never want to admit say Keys was right, Dr. Keys was right about, the success of the plan, and him dead here and thing help out with one of the bomb them and thing, and him get caught in one of the sections them where the bomb is at, and yeah, them have to move fast. I mean, Keys don't want to lose nobody else, right? No, they don't want to lose anybody else, but even though he was not necessarily the, truthful from the beginning, he not deserve that. Zimski get, left in the in the section because he didn't have any choice and thing, and Zimski did know, him tell Keys to go and everything. Now they have one more bomb that them have to deploy and thing in order to get things, aligned and stuff and whatever. So and put the bomb and thing on, at some point, I don't quite remember when it happened, but Braz, Dr. Eddie, he had to address an issue which required him to go outside without his suit in order to address it. And him basically, burn to a crisp and all of that. He got it done, but it was sad. So with all the bombs in place, the Virgil uses the heat to energy conversion to enable to be propelled, once more, so it can rise out of the earth and away from the nuclear explosion, because if they get caught in that blast wave, they, no make no sense them going anywhere, right? Even if they reach anywhere, that is it. So they are able to confirm, but they're not able to communicate directly with the team at the time. That's mission control upon the surface is able to confirm that the magnetic field is restored, and at that time the Virgil is still on its way up, so they have kind of basically no connection, no communication in or out. Now Virgil runs out of power, right, and ends up in the deep ocean and thing, unable to surface. So the only thing them can do is to try and communicate now, right? Because at least they're where they can communicate. But no, they don't have any communication. It doesn't have any power to power anything. But what they do have is that they have some sound emissions that they can make Virgil make. And that sound emission is like a whale song. It kind of sing to the whales, and so the whales them come and gather all around it and so on. And this would have been indicated earlier on in the film that was, a possibility that it can do that and thing. Rat would have been, scanning and looking for them, because everybody has said them lost and thing and whatever. But he was like, no, when I feel them lost, we need to find them. There's must be a way to find them. And then he realized, said that, he finds that the frequency is being given off at that particular location in the ocean, and so they mount a rescue to that location, and they find a whale cluster, and that is how they find Virgil. And of course, Keys and Beck are retrieved alive. The only ones that remain alive after them have, how much of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Yeah. And after everything happened and, then back to civilization, media reports the truth and say, you were saved, and here are the people you were saved. And then give all of the list of the persons who died. All right. And Zimski's recordings, because Zimski was recording, all along in the record things and stuff. Him have that habit, right? And that was used to expose Project Destiny. So, we don't know. Maybe something will come off that. These are my theories about unresolved mysteries and some plot points. So, stopping off the Earth's inner core rotation. So, the film, I said that basically the session to the unknown causes, and it a hint say it must have been some kind of human tectonic weapon, right? Destiny. But we not get a full understanding of the scientific reasons, clear in terms of all of which was there, right? So, yeah, we kind of have to just take away some points for scientific accuracy there. Unobtainium. I said it already, right? And these technologies and feasibility can be held as fictional, right? It's used to basically say, hey, this is a way for us to get to the core under the extreme conditions, right? And we not really want you to ask a whole heap of question. Just no say it's unobtainium. Right? Because if they had set up like platinum now, like some scientists like, I don't think platinum's boiling point can hold that, Yeah. Yeah. So if there is some kind of material that can survive down there, it might just be the material them down there, right? The only thing that can survive down there kind of down there. Right? And since we haven't been down there for long, right? Now, the physics core restart by the nuclear detonations. Obviously, I had to talk about this because the whole idea about using nuclear explosions, right, to restart the core spin, you know what I'm saying? Without causing any more damage than it has already done, right? With some we can already do. With some geophysical evidence, right? So there's a whole lot of different things to it. I mean, it probably is just a way for them to say, all right, this is the idea, we're thinking that, hey, we can have it doing something. There must be some way we can be able to say, all right, we'll restart it. But how we're going to do it without, it's not like something you can pick up and you can just start spin it, or you can, or there's like a switch inside of the core where you can just go in and just turn it on. And so you had to find some way to get it there, right? And nuclear option is always on the table when it comes to these films, right? And then finally survival and escape mechanisms, right? So the ship uses converted heat and pressure energy to power itself, right? It even have a low power ultrasound that attracts whales, right? And that kind of help for make them location known, right? That was key to the whole thing, right? It would have been all for naught because remember, the ocean is a big place, and so it then could have surfaced anywhere. They don't must necessarily surface back at the same location where they were launched from. So yeah, and maybe they were at a separately different location because they're coming from the core. It's not like they didn't have a particular, unless they didn't have directions and stuff, and that wasn't shown whether or not they had it's not like them can use a compass. You know what I'm saying? That not gonna work because the magnetic field just a startup, and I don't know how that would work. It would be cool to find out though. How would it work? Another thing that I thought about as well just now is that how does gravity work at that level? If there is, and probably I might be wrong, probably, gravity is fine and it's the same way, but, there must be some effects that are different, there at that depth. You're closer to the core, so there's, less mass, basically. Yeah. But, yeah, it is quite a thing. And I mean, if you have your own theories and plot points that you want to pick on, then share your theories. In this episode, we looked at the core, journeying to the center of the earth to save humanity. And the funny thing about it is that they didn't let the world know that it was at the brink of destruction until after they were able to successfully restart the planet's core rotation. Can you imagine? With all the things that is going on in this world, you can be sitting here and governments and private contractors and whoever will be working together trying to save everyone, including themselves, of course. And we are oblivious. But the truth is far scarier than that. The truth is that governments and individuals have been talking about climate change for decades now. It has been. And many persons have continued, especially the ones with influence, have continued to have a deaf ear to the conversations because they're unwilling to change their practices. They're unwilling to make an effort to make things better. Can you imagine if you are charged with this place that you are currently habiting, right? And you just do as you please and leave it how it is. And then one day you wonder why you lost it because you didn't take care of it. This thing have far-reaching implications, you know. We could talk about the ecological systems that are impacted. We could talk about the very things that are supposed to keep us alive, like the atmosphere. And trust me, it's not going to be a case where we can just leave like in Doctor Who, where the UK has a city ship, them find a space whale come and just come scoop them up. That's fiction. There is nothing or no one that's going to come and save us from ourselves. So we have to do what we have to do. And we have to wise up. So I'm hoping that this podcast can reach those ears and can echo the same sentiments. There are many creators out there who are fighting the good fight on the front lines. I'm just starting, but I'm clearly realized that, hey, there is something that needs to happen with this. We need to turn back the clock. When them say minutes to midnight, that is where we are. And not because we have the minutes, them don't mean say we have the time. Because we should have started an hour ago. So wherever you are, however you can do it, put out the word. Whether you want to share this podcast, like the podcast, let's get it out as far as possible to the persons who need to be hearing. And this is how we save humanity. This is how we save our future. And there you have it, another thrilling chapter in our voyage to the universe of sci-fi television. The path ahead leads to 2,000 downloads, and every bit of engagement brings us closer. Follow, comment, and share your thoughts. Until we meet again, keep exploring the unknown. This content is CAN credentialed, which means you can report instances of harassment, abuse, or other harm on their hotline at 617-249-4255 or on their website at creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org.